Well, there are times when you just have to read a speech. Well, yes, there are times when you have to read a speech. Oh, what is this thing? Well, we haven't had this before. This is going to serve as our lectern. Actually, it's a music stand, but we're going to use it as a lectern to hold our speech. Now, one thing before we get into delivering with a lectern, what if you don't have a lectern? Well, if you don't have a lectern, I'm going to suggest that it's okay to staple the papers together. Staple the papers together in case you drop it, you can pick them up, it's intact. The other thing I'm going to suggest you do is the numbering. Now, usually we would number the pages of a speech. Why? In case something happens, we drop them, or if we lose our place, we'll know where we were. But there's a problem with the numbering. The numbers are small. And I think the numbers should be clearly visible. Something like this. I like to use a red Sharpie, so take a look at this. So now you can clearly see that's page 3. And that's pretty clear, and it's going to register in your mind that you are now on page 3. Why is that important? It's important because it helps you keep track of time and where you are in your presentation. I like that idea of using a large number, but write it in. Don't print it in. It's a good idea. Write it big. I like to use Sharpies. They're bright. Use any color you want. Okay. The other thing I want to talk to you about is how to hold this thing. You're holding it in your hand, it's stapled together, you've got the numbers. Most people will hold it down here, and then they'll come up and they'll say, well, so that's it, congratulations, graduating class of 2023, or something really highly technical, which is the reason you're using a speech and not speaking extemporaneously. You don't want to miss anything. So, I'm going to suggest that you hold it out. Not down, but up and out. The reason being eye contact with the audience. When I'm down here, my head has a long way to go. If I'm traveling around the audience, I'm talking to you. Now I'm down here looking at dialysis, and I'm back down looking at dialysis, and I'm over here, what have you. It does slow you down. You disconnect from the audience. You don't want to disconnect from the audience. So by holding it out here, I have a shorter distance to travel with my eyes. I'm making more continual contact with the audience. And so when talking about dialysis or the gray squirrel down at Pebble Creek or whatever it is we're talking about, it's easy for me to keep contact with my audience. I can hold it with my left hand, I can flip the page, fold it in, and continue on, and I'm still in contact with the audience, which is where you want to be with your eyes as much as possible. Don't expect it to be the same as if you were speaking extemporaneously. It won't be. Well, that's some advice for people that have to hold a speech in their hand in front of the audience. But we're assuming you have a lectern, and our speech is going to be on the lectern. So let's talk about the particulars of preparation for this kind of speech delivery. First of all, you're going to print out your speech, and you're going to print, of course, only on one side, right? You're not going to print on the back. We're not going to use a binder. You're not going to turn the pages. It's not a good idea. I want you to have 2 pages visible at all times. And how do you do that? You do that through a technique of sliding the page you're done with to the left. I guess maybe you would slide it to the right if you were left-handed, but I'm not. So you would slide it when you're done with it to the left and expose the page below it. And that allows you to keep better eye contact with the audience. You'll get pretty good at this once you start incorporating this technique if you're not doing it already. So you're reading about whatever it is you're reading. You're talking about the gray squirrels at Pebble Creek, and your eyes go up and down, and you slide it to the left when you're done. It exposes the next page in your speech, and if necessary, if you get lost somehow, you have the page you just completed available to you. It's a good concept, it's a good technique to develop. Another point, in preparation, sometimes people like to use these nice nifty little plastic page holders, but look at that. Look what happens when the light hits it. Yeah, you can hardly see it because of the reflection, and you can't be sure what kind of overhead lighting you're going to have. And if that's on you, bouncing off this kind of plastic, you're going to be in a difficult position to be able to, you're going to wind up taking the pages out of the plastic anyhow. Save yourself a headache. Don't use them. They're not a great idea. Okay, get rid of that. Now, we're back to our speech on the lectern. Here we are getting ready to read it, except we printed this speech, full page, top to bottom, almost. Nice wide margins, good idea. Page numbers at the bottom. You remember what I said about the page numbers? We want to use a pen, a red pen. I like the Sharpie, and we want to number them so we can see them. But even if I number this, there's an inherent problem. This is what it is. Follow it. So I'm reading at the top of the page, and I can make eye contact with you, and there's the top of the page, and I can make eye contact, there's the middle of the page, and I can find it, and I come back up. Now I'm down near the bottom, but I'm not so sure where I was, so I'm looking, there it was, and I continue reading. It's a pain. I have a better idea for you. Instead of printing top to bottom in your typical office font, I'm going to suggest you do this. You print only the upper half of the page. Now that'll keep your eyes up here rather than top to bottom. Better eye contact. There's our number in red, so you always know where you are. Something happens, a wind blows through the auditorium, you can run around and pick them up and you'll know where 8, 9, and 10 go pretty quickly. But the idea is it helps you keep track of time. Now, as a marker for your eyes, because you're going in and out and in and out of your speech, I like to create a little bit of white space midway in my copy. And this is what I do with it. Now I've left it here for you. I don't think you can see it. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to mark it in with a red dot. You might want to use a line or a square. But now look at that. You see that red dot? I will automatically train myself to realize which side of that dot I'm reading from. So if for some reason something catches my attention in the audience, somewhere in the room, the auditorium, when I come back, I will subconsciously know which side of that mark I was reading from. And it helps me grab my place very quickly. It's a very efficient, neat kind of thing to do. Oh, by the way, the font that I used on this speech was size 16, a bit bigger than you normally use around the office, but I find that it helps keep continuity up. Now, if you get too large a font, maybe you don't want to wear your reading glasses or something, if you get too large, sometimes continuity suffers because the text, the words are really stretched out. There's a lot of text wrapping around the ends of sentences, and that might make it difficult for you to have a smooth delivery, and that's not the point of reading a speech. I hope those points help you out. It's not something that I think you'll be doing all the time, but every time you have to read a speech instead of delivering it extemporaneously, I think this will help you do a more successful job. Well, thanks for stopping by. Happy speaking, and I'll see you next time.